What is going on, guys? My name is Josh, and welcome back to the Shuffle Squad channel. Today, we are going to be bringing you our weekly meta forecast for the late night number 75 and number 76, taking place this Tuesday, February 21st at 11 a.m. CST, 12 p.m. EST, and then 7 p.m. EST, respectively, for the EU and NA times. Actually taking place on my birthday this week, so I'm looking forward to, in the morning, getting to play the late night. If you want to see me streaming my run, you can check out the link in the description to my personal Twitch. But anyways, we had a massive tournament happen just this weekend with the Oceania International Championships. Azul Garcia Griego was able to take that tournament down with a lost box list. And then we had a few online tournament results that we're also going to be going over in preparation for this week's meta. I will say this is probably the closest thing to a shakeup that the sort of faux Silver Tempest meta that we're in is going to get for a while. It's just new pieces for Lost Box. So without further ado, let's look at some results. All right, so taking a look at the OCIC results, we have Azul Garcia Griego, everyone's favorite player, taking down another IC, his second IC win with a very cool Lost Box deck. I think Azul and his group with fellow Shuffle Squad member Grant Manley have done a really awesome job adapting Lost Box throughout this meta for each specific tournament. And, you know, they really found a great 60 for this event, bringing back the Zera Aura in the midst of, I think, a lot of Raikou V hype as the optimal sort of electric type attacker. But the Zera Aura coming in clutch for a multitude of matchups. If you saw his stream game, that Zera Aura is fantastic for the Vikavolt matchup. It only gives one prize, swinging 110 into any V Pokemon, or the 140 with the Choice Belt, 2 Choice Belts in the list. But also, the Zera Aura does have free retreat, which is fantastic for a deck like Lost Box that needs so many pivots, right? So other than that, it's pretty much the standard Lost Box package with the 4 Comfey, 2 Sableye, 2 Cram, Radiant Greninja coming in, right? Sort of similar to how the Kyogre Lost Box that Azul and his group have played in the past. And then one of the unfazed Fat Snorlax. I do love that card. It's fantastic in so many ways in this deck. But yep, one Dragonite V, a Drapion V as well for that Mew matchup, and then Manaphy and the single copy of Oranguru. Moving on to supporters, he is playing the Boss's Orders. The Kyogre list didn't used to play, but otherwise it's relatively standard. He is playing the 1 copy of the Sky Seal Stone for that Mew matchup, potentially for some other matchups as well. You know, you can Zera Aura, Lugia, V-Star, take your 2 prizes, and then, you know, find another prize somewhere, maybe the Manaphy with the Sableye. And if you really need to, assuming there's no V-Guard energy on the opposing Lugia, you can use Dragon Gale with a Choice Belt and the Sky Seal Stone's effect for 3 prizes on a Lugia. The only sort of unfortunate part about having to do that, I don't know how frequently you're really able to pull it off. You probably need to know ahead of time that that's what you're going to go for. Sky Seal Stone does need to be attached to a basic V, and if you need the Choice Belt on the Dragonite, then more than likely you would have to bench the Drapion V, or you could just have the damage on that Lugia specifically, but the 30 damage on the Lugia already, I mean. I think this list is incredibly well crafted. And I don't say that to toot his horn, obviously. Azul just won one of the most stacked tournaments, if not the most stacked tournament that we've seen so far this season. And it's very clear from this list that they put a ton of thought and time into how to counter the specific meta that we were looking at post Orlando. But yeah, this list is immaculate. I think it's very good. Next up, we have Reagan Retzloff playing tried and true Lugia. There's nothing crazy about this list. It's very similar to the list that the Bradner group played to the Orlando Regionals. The 3-2 Lugia, 2 Lost Vacuum, 2 Choice Belts. They are playing the 1 copy of Birdkeeper, probably in anticipation of more Paralysis decks sort of coming back into the meta. We didn't see too much of the Paralysis decks actually doing well in the event. I believe there was one like Articuno and Teleon deck in the top 32, but outside of that, nothing too crazy. But yeah, this list is pretty standard. Adapted probably a few cards for what was expected. They are playing the Speed, Lightning, Energy still, so if you want to in the mirror matchup, you can attack with Yveltal and Raikou. because you do have the 6 colored energies, which is exactly what you need to attack with both of them. I think very good. Very solid list. Reagan, being a first-year master, absolutely cracked player. I don't know if any of you guys watched his stream games, but gosh, that set versus Rahul was one for the history books. Truly, truly, it was incredible. We do see a Mew deck making it into the top 4. I'm pretty surprised about this, to be honest. I don't know how Mew keeps getting away with being as good as it is, but they are playing the 1/1 Aerodactyl V-Star, obviously popularized by Xander Perot. I think this deck is very good. It's a pretty standard list that they were rocking. Only 4 stadiums. You have seen a lot of Mew lists start to play 5, 3 Path, 2 Lost City, just because of how effective that Drapion is at countering the deck, especially with the Skyseal Stone. And Judge Path can really do a number on these decks. So 3 Judge, only 2 Boss, 1 Roxanne, 1 Silene. Nothing too crazy. The list looks fairly standard to me. They are playing the Rotom Phone again, which I think is very interesting. But a lot of these decks, we've seen them over and over again in the meta, and a lot of the lists are pretty standard at this point. I am interested in looking at both Rahul and Pedro's top 8 lists. I'm not going to look too hard at the Lugia lists, just because Lugia is Lugia, is what I will say. It looks like they are taking out the 3rd Regigigas. I don't know how standard 3 Regigigas has been typically in recent lists. I know that was the norm for a while in the Silver Tempest meta, just because of the fear of the Lost City Mew. But 4 Research, 3 Marnie, 2 Serena, 1 Boss. The 1 Boss I think is a very nice touch. A lot of people were not playing Boss for a while. Boss Escape Rope is a fantastic way to deal with Flying Pikachu in like an Arc Flying Pikachu sort of meta. It's a great way to deal with Ice Cube, into like the Palkia deck. If they can't, completely wipe their bench of all their other Pokemon, you can go Escape Rope, Boss, take care of that Ice Cube. In theory, Escape Rope and Boss both function to allow you to targeted bolt a Flying Pikachu. So I think this list is very, very, very well crafted. And the results sort of show how well crafted it is, because Rahul and Sam Chen were both able to pilot this 60 to such a high placement at the tournament. I think this list is very well crafted. I'm personally not a huge fan of the Energy Lotto. I've just whiffed Energy Lotto too much. So if I could change something, I might change this. But realistically, I think that this placement from Rahul is going to be the most impactful in terms of the meta going forward, probably into late night and into Knoxville next weekend as well. I think that the high placement of Reggie's by such a high caliber player as well, between Rahul and Sam, will certainly put Reggie's in the view of a lot of people who otherwise would play, something that they consider higher tier, right? I do think Reggie's belongs in that tier 1, tier 1.5 sort of area, but for a lot of players, people sort of look at Reggie's and, it's not a super high skill ceiling. You obviously have to manage your resources, but I think people have underrated this deck for quite a long time, and it's nice to see it get a good placement from a good player, because that will definitely impact the meta. Next up, I'm going to take a look at, we can just briefly look at the this Lugia list, see if there's anything interesting here. No Birdkeeper here, only 1 Lost Vacuum, opting in for some other cards in the deck. I think that's totally fine. It looks like they are playing some pretty standard choices as well, only going for that 3/2 Lugia here as well, which appears is becoming more standard. But yeah, playing the Irida as well, no canceling Cologne, but opting to keep the Irida in the list. Then we're going to look at Pedro's Lost Box list. I love this list. I appreciate how well crafted Azul and Grant's list is, but gosh, personally, Pedro's list, wow, it's beautiful. As a longtime Lost Box player, I adore this list. I think it's so cool how Pedro has been able to, sort of similarly to the Azul group, adapt Lost Box for each meta. I just think it's so cool. And this list is very, very fun. The Zamazenta being in there with the 3 Metal Energy, I think is really, really good. Gives you an option into that Stoutland without having to, set up a whole Rayquaza amazing rare. The Zamazenta, I think, is very, very strong. My one issue with Zamazenta, having tested a little bit, not in a Lost Box deck like this, but I was playing it in Gudra for a little while, is it's not always easy to have a Metal Energy in your hand before you Mirage Gate, which because you would need to attach one. But you can always double Mirage Gate. That's just fine as well. But one Roxanne, one Boss, the one Raihan as well. Raihan getting you that Sky Seal Stone, very, very strong. Only the one Sableye as well is a little bit sketchy to me. I think Sableye is really important in a lot of matchups currently, but I am very, very interested in this deck. I think it's very, very well crafted, and I look forward to playing this personally. I may pilot Pedro's list to the late night this Tuesday. So that is it from the unique decks of top 8. We will take a look very briefly at some of the other Lugia decks. I don't think this one has the 3/3 Lugia line. I don't think that anything is going to impact the meta in terms of Lugia. Lugia will almost certainly still be the most played deck to the late night this week. It's so straightforward. It's so strong. One deck opting for the Dunsparce Grant Shen, opting for both Dunsparce and Birdkeeper, as well as the Wash Energy. Unique from from the standpoint of all of the other Lugia decks in top 8. Excuse me. And then the 3/3 Lugia V-Star line as well here. So, yeah. Everything else, not super interesting. We will take a look at some of the more unique lists here. Cameron, obviously, had a really unfortunate stream game, I think, opening an interesting conversation about the way that stream sort of affects people's pace of play. You know, them making Cameron play left-handed affected him. He drew a card off the top of his deck instead of a prize card twice because of it, and a bit ridiculous. Azul put a tweet about that if you want to go take a look. But this deck, very interesting, opting for double Path to the Peak. Very, very strong, very good into the Lugia deck. Instead of that Aerodactyl, you just play the Path to the Peak early, prevent them from using that ability, and yeah, just attempt to win out from there. I'm not a huge fan of Vikavolt myself. I don't expect Vikavolt to grow much in popularity. I think a lot of people are not satisfied with a deck that, you know, can sometimes brick, but then also takes a long time to close out games. I do think the list is very interesting, though, opting for the second Raikou V instead of the Ditto because of the Path to the Peaks in the deck. I do think everything here is very cool, very interesting. The Sky Seal Stone, also very, very cool. The Forest Seal Stone obviously was already in the deck, but having both of those as an option, I think, is very, very strong. So yeah, great job, Cameron, on your top 16 performance. And if you're watching this, I hope that you don't take it too hard what ended up happening in that match, because yeah, it was a little tough. Let's look at the Ray. Ray, 18th place with the 1/1 Giratina V-Star. This is very cool. 2 Manaphy, 1/1 Giratina V-Star is very cool in my opinion. Giratina V obviously getting through the Ice Cube, getting through the Flying Pikachu, and you 2-shot Flying Pikachu, so you can just shred twice, which is nice, assuming you attack first. The Giratina V-Star as well, having the ability to Star Requiem once you have 10 cards in the Lost Zone, just blowing anything in the format up. Very, very strong, particularly decent into the Mew matchup, I would think, depending on how many gusts they have remaining at the time that you play it. But yeah, I think the Giratina V, very, very good with that shred ability. And yeah, I would love to see in this list a Thornton. I think Thornton with Giratina and Giratina V-Star is very good because then you never have to worry about benching the 2 prize liability, which I think personally is very strong. So I am very interested in this list. I think it's very cool. 2 Manaphy, very strong. Obviously playing around the canceling clone, being able to play around, you know, Lugia's bossing the Manaphy, Sableye sniping the Manaphy, being able to just bench one. Very, very strong. I like this list quite a lot. Moving on, we will take a look at some of the other interesting stuff. I do also want to take a look at the Lugia with the Eviltals. Here's just pretty standard control, opting for the Ice Cube instead of the Flying Pikachu. Only 1 Ice Cube, though. 1 Ice Cube, 3 Wash instead of the sort of standard 2 Ice Cube that was sort of popularized in Orlando by Azul's group. Two Yellhorns is very interesting. I like that. Two Thorntons as well. Yeah, pretty standard control. Double Miltank is very good. Only one Eldegoss Fee, so not able to go for the Eldegoss loop, but I'm intrigued how you close games out with no Eldegoss loop, actually. I guess. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. That seems a little bit difficult, but no Pyukumuku as well still. Sander not playing Pyukumuku in a single deck. Always something weird to look at a control deck with no Pyukumuku. Let's see. Here it is. Yeah, very, very fun. 4/4 Lugia, 3 Cry of Destruction, Evil Tall. Very, very cool. Very strong in the mirror. Look at how straightforward of a list this is. It really, really does look so fun. I'm not going to lie. Looks like it might struggle a little bit more than the standard Lugia does into Lost Box decks. It does play 2 Roxanne, which you can use. The Stoutland, obviously, but yeah, the Evil Tall in there, really, really looking at taking wins against Lugia, the mirror. So, just a cool list piloted by a very good player to a top 16 finish. Other interesting stuff. We can take a look at the Gudra list. I believe it was pretty standard. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the 3/4 Gudra V-Star. Very cool. 2 Drapion, definitely very good. Not playing a Zigzagoon or a Choice Belt is pretty interesting, but looking like it's opting mostly for consistency. Dropping Luminion makes a lot of sense. No Quick Balls, no Luminion. It makes sense to me. 4 Colress, 3 Boss, 2 Marnie. No Roxanne is a bit interesting. I think you might struggle into Ray a little bit, but I think a lot of people are going away from the Ray build of Lost Box. So, yeah, I think this is a very cool Gudra list for Temple of Sinnoh. Very good into the Lugia matchup as well. I would not be surprised to see this list popping up at the late night this week. Take a look at the 1 Arc Duraludon in day 2 as well. Yeah, very standard Arceus Duraludon list. 3 Lost City for the Reggie matchup. Only 1 Temple of Sinnoh here, though. 1 Temple, 2 Parasol. It seems like maybe taking a sketchy matchup into Lugia with only a couple of outs to those and really no way to search them. So interesting, but cool to see an Arc Duraludon still hanging on by a thread. Arc Duraludon has just been on the cusp of the format since it's been introduced. So, yeah, overall, a fantastic tournament. I think will have quite a little bit of impact on the Silver Tempest meta. I think one big thing, if I had to guess, I think some Lugia will be dropping their Birdkeeper because of the lack of the paralysis decks that we saw in day 2. I believe there was one. Let's see. I could have sworn. Yeah, yep. 1 Articuno Inteleon. 1 Articuno Inteleon in day 2. Not the Palkia version, just the Articuno Inteleon with the Radiant Alakazam. Very fun, very interesting. Carl Peters taking it to a top 64. Definitely one of the more interesting decks that exist, but it is quite good into the Lugia matchup. Even with the Birdkeeper, this iteration of the deck is going to have a better time into Lugia than most. So very interesting. I don't expect to see that, but there may be some Palkia, some other paralysis decks popping up as the late night tournaments progress. So yeah, that's it for OCIC. I will say I do think that Lost Box decks, because of the 2 exciting sort of variants that have established themselves, being Azul's list and Pedro's list, I do think that we'll see a slightly larger percentile of Lost Box. I think we'll see a slightly larger percentile of Reggies as well. Maybe eating into the Lugia a little bit. I expect it to eat into Mew's numbers a little bit more than into Lugia's, but yeah, I think those 2 things can be expected to go up. I expect Duraludon and Gudra to fall down a little bit. I do still think they will be the 5th and 6th most played decks. I just think that the space between Reggies and Gudra Arctura will probably grow a not insignificant amount. So yeah, that's all for OCIC. Let's take a look at a couple other small online events. All right, so this is the one online event that we are going to take a look at today. Uh, Mostly just because there was no Lugia in top 8. It's an 80-person event. No Lugia making it to the top 8. Some very good players. My good buddy Harrison Birch, great player there as well. Rocking that Gudra list. The same one, I believe. Is this the same one? No, 2 Roxanne here. Playing the Lumineon as well with no Quick Ball. I think that's an interesting choice, but 3-4 Gudra, just like the top 32 list that we saw at OCIC. Very interesting. Pretty standard list overall, other than the increased Gudra count, but a very cool deck nonetheless. Let's take a look here. Some of the other stuff. Got a Lost Box deck, Lost Box Kyogre. Not opting to play the Sky Seal Stone, which is interesting to me. You're playing the Raikou, you're playing the Dragonite. I don't see why you wouldn't play Sky Seal Stone, especially with the Lumineon in the deck, because you can obviously attach the Sky Seal Stone to the Lumineon. Choice Belt, Raikou, or Dragonite, and then take your 3 prizes from there. But yeah, pretty interesting list here as well. 2 Lost Vacuum, looking more like the turbo version of the deck. The turbo version is okay. It's not my favorite thing in the world. It had pretty big number at Orlando and then sort of failed to convert those numbers. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see this deck try and find other iterations, but I'm not sure that it's the best version of Lost Box right now. I think Azul's list and Pedro's list are a little bit stronger. Here is a pretty standard Ray, from what I can tell, 2 Raikou, which I like. I've done that a couple of times. Took this to a local event, double Raikou, and was able to split top 4 of a 1K. I do think double Raikou is quite strong. But yeah, pretty standard. Again, 4 Colress, 2 Raihan, 1 Boss. No Roxanne. I think that's fine. 4 Escape Rope is very cool. I do think that's quite strong. No Switch Cart. It's a little worse into the mirror. Or other Lost Box decks not having the Switch Cart as a way to heal your come phase. But yeah, overall, I think this list is pretty cool. I think Double Raikou is very strong, especially if you expect the Regi deck to increase in popularity. I think Double Raikou is definitely worth the consideration. Let's see. Next, we have Arceus Duraludon. Yep, pretty standard list. Playing the 1 Skyla, 1 Serena. That's interesting. Able to grab Hyper Potions. Skyla grabs Big Parasol, grabs Tool Jammer. No Temple of Sinnoh is quite interesting to me. The Story of Mountains for the Duraludon V is interesting. It's just an extra consistency out. It's not my favorite thing in the world. Still only 2 Switch, 2 Poke Gear. But yeah, overall, looking like a slight variation on a pretty standard Arc Duraludon. Personally, I would never play this Duraludon. I think the other Duraludon is just better. But I do understand the extra damage is quite nice, at least in some regards. So moving on to Arceus Tapu Koko. 2 Unflying Peak, 2/2 Tapu Koko, 4/3 Arc, pretty cool. 1 Judge is interesting. I do like that. The Leafy Camo Poncho is also quite interesting. You can Big Parasol your active and then Leafy Camo Poncho. Either the Peak or the Tapu Koko. Obviously, that doesn't work against Escape Rope, but still a good option to have 2 Temple of Sinnoh, 4 Path. Really digging in to stopping Lugia from functioning early in the game. But yeah, this list is very interesting. Just the 1 Pokegear is a little weird to me, but I can respect it, I think. I like the 1 V-Guard energy. I might drop this, but other than that, I think the list is very interesting. Only 1 Colress Experiment as well is quite interesting. I'll have to ask Harrison about some of these list choices because they're a bit confusing to me, but I do think that this deck will have some increased numbers. My issue with this deck is that I don't actually know how consistently it beats Lugia. And if you're not consistently beating Lugia, is it really worth playing? I don't know. I'd love to see this with like a Volo, maybe a Sharon's Care. Try and find an out to getting that lone Flying Peak of VMAX into the Lost Box deck. But other than that, pretty interesting list from my buddy Harrison. Going on to The Gudra list, a little bit less of a standard one. Playing an Energy Recycler, I don't think I dislike. Kyogre and Sableye. It's very interesting. I don't hate this at all. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of space that you're committing to more energy, being able to use Kyogre. Late game, it's weird to play a late game card like Kyogre in a deck like Gudra, because generally what Gudra wants to do is play a War of Attrition and then get to a board state where you just have lone Gudra, and it's just like too difficult for them to get through that Gudra. And so playing another late game card like Kyogre is very interesting. I'm not sure it's my favorite choice in the world. I do like the 4 Battle VIP Pass 2 Quick Ball. I think that if I were going to play Gudra again, I would probably play something at least marginally similar to that. I'm not sure how I feel about no Temple of Sinnoh. I think that hinders your Lugia matchup probably quite a bit, but let's see actually. How many Lugia did they hit? They hit 3 Lugia. They did beat 2 of them. So who am I to judge, really? Seems interesting to me. Great. Okay, that's OCIC. Go back. We have a Zacian V-Star deck making the top 8. Very, very cool Zacian V-Star. And a 1/1 Zamazenta V-Star. This is very cool. The 4 Metal Saucers, 4 Cross Switchers. Very interesting stuff. I don't think that this will have too much of an impact on the metagame, but, you know, it's cool to see. And then just a Regi deck, 3 Gigas, 3 Regigigas. Very, very cool. But yeah, I think that what I'm mostly expecting, if I had to guess, what's interesting, to me at least. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense actually, because they're differentiated on Play.Limitless. I was going to say, it's weird to me that Mew is higher played than Lost Zone Box, but it's just because they've separated these things. Giratina Lost Box having a higher play rate than Gudra is weird. Huh. Silver Tempest on? Combine related deck variants into one archetype. Why does this still split them up? Anyways, what I expect, basically, is for this to go down, this to go up, this to go up, this and this to be about the same. This probably goes down a little bit. Vika probably goes up a little bit. But other than that, I don't expect too many changes. So if you are playing in the late night, number 75 and number 76, those are my thoughts on the upcoming meta. Please let me know down below what you think of these meta forecast videos and any other tournaments or anything that you'd like me to go over in the future. But until next time, I will see you next week. Have a good night.
The Shuffle Squad is proudly sponsored by Atlas Collectibles, the best place to buy any trading card game product online. Visit atlastcg.com and at the checkout screen, make sure to use code TSS12 to save an unbeatable 12% off your entire order. Atlas Collectibles will ship your product anywhere in the world, so make sure you're taking advantage of the 12% savings with TSS12. And if Pokemon is not your thing, don't worry. Go to atlastcg.com and see all the other amazing trading card game products they have there to offer.
The Shuffle Squad is partnered with PTCGO Store to provide our community with the best access to Pokemon TCG codes. They have codes available 24/7, instant email delivery, and you can save 5% off by using code TSS5. If you're a YouTube member or Patreon supporter, you'll have access to a special code that gets you 10% off. So what are you waiting for? Use code TSS5 today and save 5% on your next order of codes on any codes available at ptcgostore.com.
Are you trying to be the best like no one ever was? Now is your time. Head on over to Metafy.gg and search out all our amazing Pokemon TCG coaches, where you can book all sorts of training plans ranging from deck help to full season sessions with your favorite coach. What a great way to up your game. Check out Metafy.gg in the description below and take your game to the next level. Challenge yourself against trainers from around the world to compete for the biggest online prizing yet.
Are you ready for an unbelievable tournament unlike anything else you've ever seen before? The Shuffle Squad is proud to announce our newest tournament series, the Late Night Event, with an amazing grand prize that's bound to have you excited.
Players can compete via play.limitless.tcg.com's online tournament platform every Tuesday to get a chance to earn weekly prizes. And every week, your placement in the tournament is tallied by points based on your best finishes to earn your rank for the Late Night Invitational event.
The series will be conducted starting February 7th of 2023 and carry all the way through to the Invitational on July 9th of 2023, where the top players will be rewarded the grand prizing.
And the grand prize is a signed jersey and photo op with the entire Shuffle Squad, as well as a fully paid trip to the Pokemon World Championships in Yokohama, Japan. This includes hotel and airfare, whether you're a player or a spectator.
Don't forget to check out all the live coverage on our YouTube and Twitch channel of the top cuts of these events for every week. And subscribe so you can get notified where to watch the Late Night Events Invitational brought to you by the Shuffle Squad. Now get out there and start winning. We'll see you in Japan.